Mr. Chair, we are now live.
Good evening and welcome to the Town of Ajax Heritage Advisory Committee for Wednesday, June 1st, 2022. This meeting is being held electronically and live streamed on the internet. All staff and committee members are participating by phone or video. All regular practices and procedures of the committee continue to apply during this electronic meeting. If we encounter any technical difficulties, we may take a brief recess until they are resolved. Thank you for your patience. We'll now proceed with the meeting. First of all, are there any conflicts of interest from committee members with any items to be discussed this evening? No conflicts? Seeing none, I thank you. And then we can look for the adoption of the minutes from the previous meeting dated May 4th, 2022. Do we have a motion to adopt the minutes?
I will move that the minutes be adopted as posted, barring any errors or omissions.
Moved by Stephen. Can I have a seconder?
Neil had his hand up.
Seconded by Neil. All those in favor?
Carried.
Carried. So we'll move on now to presentations and discussion items, and I'll hand it over to Michael.
All right, good evening, everyone. So I'm just checking in to see if I can control the slides here. I don't think I'm able to. So Sarah, can I get you to advance the slides when necessary?
Through the chair, yes. I did make you co-host, but I'm not sure if that makes you able to transition if I'm sharing the screen. So feel free to just give me the cue and I'll transition.
Okay, we'll do that. Thank you very much. Okay, next slide, please. So the first item that I'll be speaking to tonight is a proposed project at 22 Linton. So this isn't actually a heritage permit application, but given that we're about to break for the summer, and I do have an expectation that this will come in, I wanted to give everybody a quick background on the project so that we had an opportunity to discuss any questions or comments that you may have. Next slide, please. So 22 Linton is a property right in the heart of Pickering Village. It is on the southwest corner of Sherwood Road and Linton Avenue. Next slide, please. And it is a property that I hope most of you are aware of, as it's one of the most unique properties in our historic conservation district there. Next slide, please. So this property was actually, or the building on this property was actually built in 1843 for William Hartrick, who was a magistrate in Pickering Village for nearly 30 years. It's a blend of a couple different architectural styles, largely Regency, but with some neoclassical elements. It is the oldest building in the Pickering Village HCD, and it is the only stone building in that particular area. And just a neat little fact about this one, it is the most protected building in a sense that we have in Ajax because it's protected by an individual heritage designation under the Act. It's captured within the Pickering Village Heritage Conservation District, and it's also protected by a heritage conservation easement with the town. Next slide, please. So last year, new owners purchased the property. And they're looking to undergo a few repairs on the exterior of the building now. And the work that they want to have done is primarily a replacement of all the windows, some masonry repairs, and also replacement of the eaves and downspouts. Next slide, please. So I'm just going to fly through a few photos here to give you a sense of the work that they're looking to have done. The largest and I'd say most significant windows on this property are the four that appear on the south facade, which is historically the main facade of this building. So there's two on either side of the doorway, They're also looking to replace the dormer windows on the second floor. The basement windows were replaced a few years ago with vinyl windows. I think that was pre-Heritage District. They are not proposing to replace those. So it's just the ground floor and the upper floor windows. Next slide, please. So the windows do come in a variety of sizes. This is the facade or the elevation that's directly opposite the south facade that we just looked at. So as you can tell, these are much smaller windows here. And also interesting that over time, I think some of these windows have been replaced. So you can see different patterns and different sort of pane divisions and that sort of thing. So, on the right, you see the 4 different window panes compared to the 2 on the left. Next slide, please. All of these windows are also protected by storm windows. So on one of the previous slides, you could see that much of the glass is actually broken. But I think beyond that, the main reason to undergo this project is the owners are looking for a more functional window system, something where they can just have one window that's operable, and they don't have to worry about maintaining storm windows and putting those up and taking them down every year. Most of the windows that I viewed when I was out at the site last week are replacements. They aren't original windows. So what we'll be looking to do is replace them with windows of likely an even better quality, but something that would match the original architecture and era of the building. Next slide, please. The second component that they want to look at is a full repointing of the stone masonry. So you can see here, there's a number of different mortars that have been used over time, most of them inappropriate. So it's the idea is to get somebody in there that knows what they're doing, a historic masonry company that can take out all the mortar on the building and then repoint it with an appropriate mortar mix for the stone used in the building. Next slide, please. So there's beyond the cracks that were visible on the last photo, you can also see that there's some significant damage that's been done. And in this case, I think it was actually the installation of the vinyl windows in the basement that probably led to the brick lintel sort of becoming detached from the facade. So there are a few elements of this that I think will probably need a full reconstruction. Next slide, please. And we also have this scenario with this very interesting eastern facade. So this has always been explained to me as an attempt to dress the building up, covering up the field stone and trying to parge it with something that would then look like an ashlar stone, which is a finely cut limestone or granite. I'm not sure if I totally buy into that story, if that's actually what was attempted to be achieved here, or if there were just a number of elements at some point during this building's history that were causing deterioration of the stone facade, and they parged over it all for the sake of just making repairs nice and easy in one shot. So the owner did express a desire to do some work on this elevation and was interested in knowing what we would be open to. At this point, I don't think they have their heart set on any particular approach to that work, but I did say, based on the history we do have, it may be a requirement to keep at least the visible elements of this elevation that we see now. So the resemblance of these large stone blocks. Next slide, please. And the last item they're looking to do is replacement of the eaves. When I did a walk around at the property, it was shown to me where they're leaking in a number of places. So it would really just be a replacement of what's there now. The existing system is a bit of a mix. You've got a small sort of wooden cornice that leads directly into an aluminum soffit system with the downspouts and the eaves. So they're just looking to replace the aluminum elements with essentially what's there now, but just a new version that's in better working order. Next slide, please. So right now, the owners are in the process of collecting estimates from 2 or 3 different window companies. Just this afternoon, I was forwarded at least a couple of those estimates, and it's somewhat remarkable, the variance in terms of the cost. One came in at, I believe, just over $60,000 for the 13 windows, whereas the other one came in at around $23,000. So I'm looking to get a little more information on why there is such a huge gap in those prices. In both cases, it was windows that I would deem to be appropriate, wood style windows that would match what would have been there historically. We do have about $15,000 remaining in the Pickering Village CIP Facade Improvement Grant Fund this year. So the owners would be able to spend up to $30,000 and get that matched at a 50% rate based on what we have left. So given the limited funds that are available, it looks like they will likely proceed with the window work this year and then hold off on any masonry and eaves work until likely next year. So as I stated at the beginning, I really just wanted to get this in front of the committee before the summer break in case anybody had any questions. So with that, I will turn it back to the chair to facilitate any questions that you may have.
Thanks, Michael. Are there any questions on the what you've seen today, people? No questions? Thank you very much. Oh, sorry. Just go ahead, Neil.
You're on mute, Neil.
You're muted.
There you go. The first image, Michael, front door didn't look in very good condition. Is that right?
I don't know if it's my connection or your connection, Neil, but I couldn't hear you clearly there.
Okay.
I'm still having trouble. Is anyone else having trouble hearing Neil?
Yes.
Yeah, we're getting repetition.
Don't worry.
Neil, did you want to try possibly putting your question into the chat and I can read it out loud?
It's okay. Don't worry about it.
Question.
Go ahead. Oh, Jeff.
9/9 windows?
So the windows, I'm still trying to get a sense of what was likely there originally. There are various size windows throughout this building. So it'll really depend on the size of the window in terms of what's appropriate. But at this point, the quotes have each of the windows being replaced with what's there currently. So I sent an email to the owner today to explain that we'd want to take a closer look at the size of the windows to determine exactly what that light pattern would be.
Any further questions? So I guess we move on to your next presentation, Michael.
All right, thank you. Next slide, please. So the Nicholas Austin property is one that that we spent quite a bit of time on last year. This is the property that we designated most recently, and it's located at the southwest corner of Kingston Road and Lake Ridge Road, right on the sort of eastern limits of the town boundaries. Next slide, please. And you'll remember that this property was made up of a little complex of historic buildings. Nearest to the street was the residence, and then in behind you had a number of agricultural buildings, as well as an airplane hangar, which is the the building that's sort of seen at the bottom left there. Next slide, please. But it is the residence itself that really sparked our interest in this property. And this is a photo back from 2019, I believe. And as you can see from this photo, there was a few problems with the issue or with the property and this building, particularly the fact that the eaves were not being maintained and they were filled up with debris. And you can see there above the window that there was vegetation actually growing from them because they had not been maintained in so long. Next slide, please. So this resulted in a scenario where we received a call from a concerned resident who wanted to know what we could do about the condition of the building. Next slide, please. And at the time, I went to talk to bylaw, particularly the property standards staff there, and determine if we could go in and make requests for this property owner to clean up the property and address the issues that we were finding. At that point, the advice we received back from bylaw was that we shouldn't move forward with any property standards issues until the property was designated. And the reason for that was if it wasn't designated, we wouldn't be in any control in terms of permitting what they could do in terms of alterations to the property. So the recommendation was that we seek designation and then we could go forward and try to have these issues remedied. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, we did designate this property last year, and I went out earlier, I guess it's last month now, to have a look. And most of the issues that we had spotted previously have now been addressed. So there's not any clear issues. And as I'm saying that, I'm just looking closer at the photo now, trying to see if there was actually a downspout missing. That's something I may have to do some investigation into because I didn't notice that the first time around. I was looking more at the eaves. There didn't seem to be any issues. If the downspout is in fact missing, that's something that absolutely has to be addressed. And I will follow up with the town's bylaw department so that we can ensure that those downspouts and the eaves are in good working order. If that doesn't seem to be an issue, and if if all of the major issues that are really were putting the building at risk had been mitigated already, my advice would be we just continue to monitor the situation to ensure that nothing new comes up. There are a few sort of non-compliance issues on this property, things like the propane tanks in the front yard. But they're not really heritage related and they don't really pose a major threat to the building. So my concern with heritage properties is often, I want to avoid being as heavy-handed as some municipalities are. We don't want to discourage people from designating their properties. And if we, just designated this property last year and then we're constantly going after them about other issues to be resolved that aren't really posing any danger, I don't necessarily think that's the best approach. So my recommendation on this one is to really, seek out the stuff that is posing a threat to the building. If there are threats, we'll have those remedied and perhaps, not pay so much attention to some of the other items. So with that, again, I'll just open it up to the committee to see if anyone has any questions or comments.
Any questions or comments from the committee members? Seeing none, I guess we can move on to your next item, right. The Janes Walk overview.
Okay, next slide, please. Thank you. So this is just a quick overview to kind of celebrate the massive turnout that we had at the Janes Walk the first weekend in May. So as you'll be able to see from these photos, we had a heck of a lot of people come out that Saturday morning. I counted close to 100 at the time we left the first stop at Town Hall. Next slide, please. So this is just another photo here. You can see Stephen and Paul at the head of the pack, leading what is by far the largest group that we've ever had participating in this tour. Next slide, please. And another view as we hit probably the most southern point of the tour. Next slide, please. And then the group again as we made our way through Roosevelt and some of the historic homes there. Next slide, please. So I want to take a couple minutes just to share the survey results. The vast majority of the people that came out were from Ajax, but we did have a number of people from other locations like Scarborough and Toronto and Oshawa come out to this event. So, as I think could be expected with all of the local promotion we did, it really was the locals coming out and learning about the history of our town. I found it quite interesting to see the split in how people heard about the event. The two main sources were newspaper and social media. So interesting to me because these days we seem to be moving, in some cases entirely, to digital advertising of events, but it is interesting to see how many people do still rely on those tactile sources. And excuse me, the newspaper is still, a very useful tool for us in getting the word out about these events. Also, lots of word of mouth, and then some people finding it on the town's website, and at least one person finding it on the overall Jane's Walk website. The most staggering stat in my mind was, is this your first time participating? 96% said yes, it was their first time. And that's representative of 23 out of 24 survey respondents. So of the 24 people that filled out the surveys, only one person had participated in a Jane's Walk previously. So I think that's quite a good thing that we're reaching a new audience and, feeding some information to people that didn't likely know about these types of events in the past. Another amazing statistic, sort of speaking to the job that Stephen did leading this tour and also the work done by Paul to assist. Would you participate again in the future? 100% of people said they would. So that's a phenomenal result there. Next slide, please. We had a few different questions based on a sliding scale. The first was asking people how much they enjoyed the event, with 0 being that they didn't enjoy it at all, and then 4 being they enjoyed it, as much as they possibly could. Vast majority of people were in that 4 category. So that everybody really had a good time and was really happy to have come out. In terms of how much people learned, again, vast majority of people saying they learned, probably far more than they would have expected. There are a few people that said they learned a little less. I think that's because there are a number of people in town that do know about the town's history. So for some of them, elements of this would have been a bit of a refresher. Next slide, please. We opened it up to get suggestions. Quite a few people talked about the microphone and wanting the sound to be a little louder. I don't really think it was the microphones that were the issue. I think it was the size of the crowd. And when you have that many people, it's hard to get everyone close enough to hear. So that was really a result more related to the success of the event than anything else. A few people thought that we should have broke it down into smaller groups. Interestingly, a number of people said we should have made the walk longer. Whereas past experiences, I've always had people saying, make it shorter. So the fact that people wanted it to be longer really speaks to how much they enjoyed the event. And then a couple other items about providing handouts and keeping people safe as well. And again, that really relates to the huge numbers we had. It was difficult to keep people on the sidewalks. They were spilling onto lawns and sometimes out onto the street. In terms of future walk locations, lots of suggestions for the waterfront, a couple for Pickering Village, and one for Pat Bailey Square. So if we do want to veer away from the DIL tour in the future, there are definitely other options for us to consider. Any questions or comments on the Janes Walk? Nope. All right, so we can move right along then. Next slide, please. Next slide. So we've spoken about the West Glen plaque unveiling at the last couple of meetings. Back in April was the first time that we spoke about it, and it was determined by the group that we really should have a public event if possible, because it has been a number of years, over the last couple of years, we've had very few opportunities to come together and do this type of work. At the May meeting, we had a presentation from Poonam from the rec department and learned a little bit about the HMS Ajax and River Plate veterans visit. And we saw an opportunity for alignment there, perhaps hosting the plaque unveiling during the week that they were in town. Unfortunately, when I followed up with staff, it was determined that the itinerary for that week was already jam-packed. So there wasn't an opportunity for us to work our unveiling into their plans for June 21st. So at that point, I sent out an email to the committee asking, do you still want to aim for an event that week, or should we consider another time altogether? I received a few different responses. No real clear trends. I think two people said we might as well plan it for a week that works better for everyone else, whereas at least one person had said, why not push forward with that date anyways? And then if people are around and available, they can stop by. I did go back out to the site to take another look because, as I mentioned previously, Westney is under construction right now, and the state of the grounds really isn't ideal. So now that we know we're not going to be able to pair this event with the visit from the veterans, I think we need to have another discussion about whether or not we should even be aiming to do this summer or do this at all. Next slide, please. I've got a few different photos here of the state of the site. So the site itself is actually fenced off. I'm sure if we were moving forward with an event, we could have the fencing removed for a day to get onto that site. But as you can see from this photo as well, this is also a staging area for some of the infrastructure products that are being installed in the street. So it's not ideal. And at the opposite end of the path here, the homeowner at that end is doing their own construction. So they have a big debris bin out there. There's not much in the way of an ideal location for us to host something. Next slide, please. When you look north, you can see that, this isn't specific to the area in front of the park. This is going essentially all the way north up to Taunton. And then next slide, please. You can see that they're slowly inching their way north towards the West Glen property. So I still think it'll be a few months before the project has progressed to the point where it's, the heavy machinery and that kind of stuff is out of view in terms of its proximity to West Glen. But the project itself is likely to go on until the end of next summer, which could make it quite difficult for us to organize something there. So with that, again, I'll open it up to the committee. Do you think we should press forward and find a way to work this event into our plans, or is this something that perhaps we push aside and focus on other plaques moving forward?
Any comments from committee members?
I think if with all the construction there, we might as well just push on, put it into the next year to look at it. We've kind of bypassed quite a few plaques that we haven't really unveiled in the last couple of years. So another one pushed off might not hurt too much.
And speaking to that, Stephen, one thing I wanted to get people thinking about as well is future plaque themes. So we've had a few over the last couple of years that have somewhat fallen in our lap with the commemoration for D.D. Palmer that we did at the Audley Recreation Center. This one was very closely tied to the West Glen redevelopment project. So again, it was very timely to do that. Now we have an opportunity to sort of look a little more broadly at the town's history and some of the elements we perhaps haven't celebrated in the past. So that's something that coming out of tonight's meeting, if people are willing to take a little time to do some brainstorming and think about either, people or places or events in the town's history that we think need to be celebrated, we can reconvene following the summer and, get working on perhaps our next plaque and start thinking about the write-up and all that, those elements.
I guess if I could add a quick comment, I would agree with holding off until the site is something to look at as opposed to a major tripping hazard, everything hazard type of thing.
Yeah. All right, I guess we can move along. Next slide, please. So we're at that time of year where we discuss the Patrick Sheehan Bursary Awards. The high school commencement ceremonies are shifting back this year to an in-person format, and most are scheduled for the end of June. So this is our opportunity now to see if people are willing to attend these ceremonies and perhaps, have somebody there from the committee in order to provide these awards to the students that have earned them. So I have a list of 4 different events, some with more information than others. Information slowly trickling in on a couple of them, so I can provide further information as it becomes available. But currently we do have the main details of 4 events, so we know when they'll be happening and where they'll be happening. Next slide, please. So the first one is for J. Clark Richardson Collegiate. That will be Wednesday, June the 29th at noon. And that will be happening at the UOIT campus in Oshawa. Ajax High School will be happening the same day. That ceremony begins at 1 p.m. and that will be at Iroquois Park in Whitby. Next slide, please. Another event on the very same day, this one at 3 p.m., which is at the Embassy Church in Oshawa, and that's for Notre Dame Catholic Secondary School. And then we have a 4th event for Pickering High School, this one on the following day. So the first 3 were all on June 29th. This one is on Thursday, June the 30th, starting in the morning this time at 10 a.m. At the UOIT campus as well in Oshawa. So now that we do have these dates and times available, is there anybody that would be interested in attending any of these events?
Perhaps we leave. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say through the chair, I did receive word from Anderson, who unfortunately sent regrets tonight, but he said likely, depending on his availability, he is interested in participating, would just need to be provided with the dates.
Okay, well, what I can do is I will send an email out to the group tomorrow morning highlighting these dates. And then if anybody is interested, including Anderson, just follow up with a response to that email, and then I can pass that along.
Sounds like a solution.
All right, thank you, everyone. So next slide, please. We were recently contacted by the rec department. They're reaching out to a number of various committees and different organizations throughout the town to find out if people were interested in setting up booths at any of the local events that are coming up. In the past, we have tended to focus on Canada Day and Family Day. It's my understanding that the Canada Day event, as it happens now, is quite a bit different than it was in the past. Rather than there being a daytime event where we could set up and then a different nighttime event, it's just one long event now where people would be required to be there until 10 p.m. So it may not be such a good fit in terms of, volunteer effort that would be required to staff a booth for that long. But I did want to just raise these options for the committee and see if anybody did have any interest or thought that we should be setting up at any of these events. So take a quick look there to see what's available. And then we'll go to the next slide. And I can just sort of explain what I've been thinking about recently. I think it would be useful for us to be a little more strategic in terms of determining which events we're going to set up at. There's a lot of benefit in going to a sort of an event directed at the general public, such as Canada Day or Family Day, because it does expose us to a lot of individuals. At the same time, it's not always a good mix. So, for example, at the Family Day event in the past, lots of times there's a lot of youth-oriented activities, jumping castles and that sort of thing. And visitorship to our booth can really vary through the day. We do get some interested people, and that's always great to be able to chat with them. But then I compare that to an event like Jane's Walk that we just had the other day. We had close to 100 people out, as I mentioned, and a number of people that were extremely interested in the town's history and finding out how they can become more involved. So I know of at least 2 individuals that day that actually asked about, the availability to participate on the Heritage Committee or historical societies and that sort of thing. So I think it would be in our best interest to ensure that we have a good presence at those events where we know that people with an interest in history would be there. But again, I wanted to open it up to the committee to see, if anyone had any ideas about individual events that we should be trying to target, or just to get people's general sense on, what their availability is, if they've had good experiences in the past at these booths, or, any recommendations at all for the team. So with that, again, I'll turn it over to the chair for some discussion.
Anybody have any viewpoints on what we're talking about?
Yes. I've done the Canada Day 1 event for, I think it was about 3 or 4 years. And it always seemed like it was, again, mostly kids, children, because it was the same thing, bouncy castles and cotton candy and all those type of music stuff are more directed at children. You did get a few people that came through that were interested, but not enough to make it, a full day sort of thing. It did kind of drag on a bit. I know I've had, the last time I did it, I did have some help from the committee. A few more people showed up for an hour here or there, which was great. That's all.
I guess if I can interject, we've had some great luck with the Canada Day presentation, and it would be the fact that it's longer this time around could be a bit of a stumbling block. But my favorite is the Canada Day Act. Does anybody else have any further points? Okay, Michael, I guess we move on to your next item.
All
Through the chair. Sorry, Jeff, if I could just add one perspective, because the Accessibility Advisory Committee is kind of going through the same exercise, and we sort of share in the same mindset that to be there in an evening event where you're hoping for passers-by traffic, and when people are primarily there to see the fireworks, isn't necessarily the best bang for the buck, right? Because we want to have time to talk to people in the community and answer their questions. So I really agree with Mike and would encourage members to think a little bit more strategically in how event participation could support the committee and the messaging that it wants to get out. Maybe it is hosting more walks throughout the year. Maybe it is hosting larger unveiling type events than we have in the past. So just be mindful of that the opportunities are there. It's always great to partner with events that are already taking place targeting the community, but we also want to make sure that it's the right fit for members' availability and time and with the message that we want to share.
I think we had a lot more success at the Pickering Jazz Festival when we just had the booth. We had it there for 2 days, but we had a lot more people. Not a lot, there was still a lot of children, but a lot of people were interested because you were right in the Heritage Conservation District. So a lot more information be shown.
And that's interesting feedback. And if I remember correctly, and Sarah, I'm not sure if you remember even more than I do on this one, but I think there may have been a change in the sort of administration of that festival, whereas it potentially may have been a town event in the past, or the town had more of a role more of a role in the event, and that allowed us to have a booth. I seem to remember something having changed though, and then all of a sudden that opportunity wasn't available to us anymore, and I'm not quite sure why that was. Do you happen to know any of that history, Sarah?
Yeah, I have a similar understanding that the ownership and leadership for the event has shifted, but I'm wondering if the opportunity might still be there. We just don't necessarily know the right contact to reach out to. So I can chat with our current festivals and events team to see if they have perhaps a contact for us to liaise with and see if the opportunity is there.
That would be great.
Any further comments? So we'll move on to the next item, which is mine. It's the Heritage Minute video project update. And I share that with Pam and the other members who've been helping out with the video. Pam has authored a brand new script, and we were working on filing that down a bit, but we have another project in the works. Any comments, Pam, about your script? Very good, very good.
I'm not getting feedback. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you clearly.
Okay. So the next one is the DIL. I just sent it to the subcommittee just for some feedback. It is just under 2 minutes right now, but the challenge is how many things to include, that's always, because DIL is such a huge topic. So I look forward to some feedback from the committee, and then we can go from there. Okay.
Yeah, we've received your script, and look forward to editing it. And I'm sure we can shrink it a little bit so it's a nice, tight little package. Any comments?
Okay.
Yeah, I have one. Pam,
what?
I think we have to change a little wording in the beginning. We weren't the largest. Michael's discovered there's one in Scarborough that says they were the largest. So I would say one of the largest, not the largest one in all the Commonwealth.
Yeah, okay, thank you. I mean, that's the kind of feedback I need. And also there was a couple of areas that I didn't know the number, so I just put a number sign. So regarding the number of buildings, et cetera, et cetera. So there's just some input I need to, and we can make it shorter. That's not a problem. There's things that can come out, I think. So
I did a quick read through and looked pretty good. There's just a couple of things I'll send you a note to, that we might want to change.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments? So we'll move on to correspondence, and I don't believe there's any correspondence.
Oh, sorry,
So the
Mr.
next
Chair, I
item-
had a quick item.
Go ahead.
Item 4.8, end of term delegation to council.
Oh, very good. Yes, indeed. Sorry.
So very briefly, as we know that this is our last scheduled meeting of the term, members are appointed until the end of February 2023. And just because we don't have a meeting scheduled does not mean that should the need arise, being a statutory committee, the chair can call a special meeting at any time. So if Mike has applications that the committee is required to review, we can convene for a meeting, even though there isn't one scheduled between now and the official end of term. However, we do have an opportunity to provide a summary report, as we typically do in the fall of each year, but the final council meeting for this term falls on September the 9th. So it's an opportunity I wanted to flag for the committee now, in case there's a subcommittee that would like to work over the summer months and prepare either a written report, a presentation, a hybrid, whichever you choose, as I know you guys do great presentations when you're presenting to council. So the opportunity is there. We are scheduled for that report on that evening, and we can look for multiple committee members to present or prepare the report, or it could be the chair, vice chair, however we see fit, and whoever wants to be involved.
Thanks, Sarah. So we'll put that on our to-do list, and it's got to be done by September. So anybody who would like to step forward and help work on that, please do so. I'll volunteer myself right now as one of the contributors.
Excellent. And perhaps I can send an email out just as we're doing for some other items this evening to solicit any participation from the committee.
Very good.
Thanks.
So now we'll move to correspondence. I see none. The next is the update from council. Councillor Khan, do you have anything to share with the committee at this time?
Yes, sir, I do. Good evening, everyone. When you're going through the slideshows there, Mr. Sachek, I saw a photo with former Mayor Parrish and former MPP Joe Dixon, which, as we all know, we lost dear Joe. And one of the private places of worship, it's a Hindu temple, held a memorial for him last Saturday at the Audley Recreation Center. I was there to present to his family on behalf of us, Ajax and Council. And it was very emotional. He's done so much. I didn't know he served on Council for 20 years. And he's done so much for us and Ajax, and he'll be well remembered. I just wanted to bring that to your attention. Excuse me, Pussycat. Okay. And then the next thing, this is Genghis Khan. This is his name. He's a Bengal tiger. Okay, leave me alone. Leave me alone. Okay, and that's one. Number two, we just experienced one of the worst storms over the last maybe 40 years, and it was very inconvenient for a lot of people. But we, thankfully, we have not had any casualties in Ajax, so to speak. South Ajax, I think, was hardest hit because of the overhead wires, and we brought that forward. And the mayor's working on, Lexican has to get on board and start burying wires, right? Because North Ajax, we really didn't get much or weren't much affected by the loss of electricity. So Mayor Collier, and we're working on getting Lexicon to take this, a little more at hand and start burying wires so we can avoid this in the future. But what I did see was, again, like in any big storm or any big event we have in Ajax, people get closer, people come out and support each other. They were chopping trees together, clearing streets. So it's always heartwarming to see how we pull together in hard times. So congratulations, Ajax. I just want to bring to attention that we have a lot of activities. Our staff have been working very, very hard for this summer. From June 26th to July 3rd, we have Trail Fest happening at St. Francis Center. Has the 2022 season performances. There's many. And I'm saying this just because everything is on ajax.ca website on activities. We have movies in the park. There is one in each, one at Audley Rec, one at McLean Center, one at the Ajax Community Center. Canada Day will be celebrated July 1 at Ajax Downs again, like back in the day. And we have Summer in the Square presented by TD Bank. And very important, we have a meet and greet with the HMS Ajax, River Plate Veterans and Association members this month of June. So there's lots of activities, a lot of street naming will be happening, and a lot of good stuff. But to get more details, just go on our website, ajax.ca, and everything will be in. Just a brief overview I just gave you. It's all there in detail. So thank you very much for the opportunity to bring the update from Council.
Thanks, Councillor. Does anyone have any questions or comments for the councillor? Very good. And thank you for your comments about the storm. And a lot of people were affected by it, myself included. Power was off in my house for 5 days. And it was interesting bringing out all the camping equipment, seeing what worked and what didn't. And but otherwise, thank you very much. Under other business, does anyone have any other business to share?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
When do you think we will be resuming in-person meetings again?
Mr. Chair, I can take that one.
Yeah. Thank you.
So this is the last scheduled meeting of the term. So we don't, as a committee, have any meetings scheduled for between now and recruitment for the new term unless a special meeting is called. The direction right now is that we continue with electronic meetings until the foreseeable future, hopefully by September, if not by October, because we are renovating our council chambers to upgrade the audiovisual system to allow for hybrid participation. So once that is complete, it's sort of caused a domino effect in terms of meeting space, because if we do continue with in person, there's a live stream component that we've added throughout this pandemic that we don't want to lose. And currently the River Plate Room doesn't have that hybrid capability to continue with the live stream if people are participating in person as well. So that's why we're looking forward to those upgrades to that space, which would likely mean that future committee meetings would be moving to the council chambers for their proceedings.
Okay, thank you. That was lots of information. Thank you.
We're very excited. We've been waiting a long time. There have been some delays, unfortunately, due to availability of some of the technology as it's affected projects all over the world in terms of certain pieces being available. So we're excited that it will be completed this fall.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any further questions? I have one for staff. Just going back a bit, we are serving members until February, I believe.
That's correct, Mr. Chair. So we all are aware, or if not, surprise, there will be an election happening in October this year, and that is for your municipal offices as well as school board trustees. So information on recruitment opportunities will be circulated throughout the summer for the election officer positions. Then the final council meeting will be in September, I believe, and inauguration is scheduled for November. So that's the onboarding of the new council. And we're required to wait until new council is sitting before we can bring forward establishment bylaws for the committees. Regardless of whether or not they're statutory, we still need to present updated terms of reference and the establishment bylaws. So that's tentatively scheduled for December. And then that pretty much gives us the green light to go ahead with recruitment. So that will take place December to January and involves, as you're aware, an application process, screening process, and then onboarding orientation for members, with the anticipated start that members will be in place to start meetings as of March 2023, which is why, being a statutory committee, because we could have business arise at any time, we still need to have membership appointed up until the transition of a new committee.
So committee members should be prepared to attend a special meeting if it arises, and your responsibilities will continue until February.
That's correct. And it's not as if communications from staff is going to cease and desist after this evening either. We want to keep you apprised of opportunities for engagement and involvement, especially those things related to the committee's mandate. And if a special meeting does happen to be called, we can meet with a minimum of our quorum membership. So there's not an obligation to interrupt or cancel summer vacation plans or things of that nature. We do have a fairly strong complement on this committee, so I don't foresee any issues if that situation arises.
Very good. Any further questions or comments? In that case, I'll be put forward a motion to adjourn. Do I have someone to move that? Motion to adjourn.
Me, I will.
I moved it.
Okay, and do we have a seconder?
They're all second.
Stephen White seconded.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone. We have a motion to adjourn. We have a vote to adjourn. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.